I still remember the sound of my own scream as I fell, the world tilting wildly before darkness swallowed me whole. The polished wooden stairs of the Whitmore house, gleaming under the chandelier's glow, became my undoing in an instant. It wasn't an accident. I saw her face, Clara, my best friend's cousin, hovering above me, her lips curled in a smile that wasn't kind. Her hands, quick and deliberate, had shoved me with a force that felt personal, like she'd been waiting for the moment to unravel me. I hit every step on the way down, each jolt a reminder of how fragile trust can be. When I woke up in the hospital, my leg in a cast and my head pounding, the questions started. Why would Clara do this? What had I done to earn her hatred? And why did my best friend, Emily, look at me with eyes that flickered between guilt and fear when I told her what happened? The Whitmore family had always been a second home to me. Emily and I met in 3rd grade, bonding over shared secrets and stolen cookies from her mom's kitchen. Her family's sprawling Victorian house, with its creaky floors and endless rooms, was where we built forts, planned our futures, and laughed until our sides ached. Clara, though, was different. She was older, always on the edges of our world, her sharp eyes watching us like a hawk circling prey. She'd been living with the Whitmores since her parents' messy divorce, a quiet shadow who rarely spoke but seemed to carry a grudge against the world. I never thought that grudge would turn on me. As I lay in that sterile hospital bed, the memory of Clara's smile gnawed at me. Emily sat by my side, her hands twisting in her lap. "You must have tripped, Anna," she said, her voice unsteady. "Clara wouldn't do that. She's family." Her words stung more than the bruises blooming across my ribs. I wanted to scream that I knew what I felt, her cousin's hands on my back, the push that sent me tumbling. But Emily's eyes begged me to drop it, to let the family stay unbroken. I couldn't. The pain in my body was nothing compared to the betrayal burning in my chest. When I was discharged, I went straight to the police. The officer, a tired man with graying hair, listened patiently as I recounted the fall. "No witnesses," he said, scribbling in his notebook. "And you're sure it wasn't an accident?" I nodded, my jaw tight. Clara's face was seared into my mind, her smile a taunt. The officer promised to look into it, but his tone told me he doubted anything would come of it. The Whitmores were a respected family, after all, pillars of the community, with their charity galas and perfect smiles. Who was I? A nobody with a broken leg, to point fingers. Back home, my apartment felt smaller, the walls closing in as I hobbled on crutches. My mom called every day, her voice thick with worry, but I brushed her off. I didn't want pity. I wanted answers. Late at night, unable to sleep, I started digging. Clara had always been private, but the internet has a way of peeling back layers. I found old social media posts, cryptic messages about betrayal and revenge, photos of her with a man I didn't recognize. There was something dark in her eyes, even in those grainy images, a hint of the storm that had pushed me down those stairs. Emily stopped answering my texts. The silence was louder than any argument we'd ever had. I missed her, but the hurt was stronger. Clara chosen family over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that she knew more than she was letting on. The Whitmores had secrets, And I was starting to think my fall was just the tip of something much deeper. I started keeping a journal, scribbling down every detail I could remember about that night, the way Clara's hands felt, the flicker of guilt in Emily's eyes, the way the house itself seemed to hold its breath as I fell. One evening, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Leave it alone," it read. "You don't know what you're stirring up." My heart pounded as I stared at the screen. The words felt like a threat, but they also lit a fire in me. Whoever sent it, Clara. Maybe. Or someone protecting her thought they could scare me into silence. They were wrong. I spent my life being the good friend, the one who smoothed things over, who never made waves. Not anymore. I started watching the Whitmore house from a distance, parked across the street in my beat-up sedan. Clara came and went, her movements quick, like she was always looking over her shoulder. Emily, too, seemed different, tense. Her usual brightness dimmed. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I couldn't stop. The fall had broken more than my leg. It had shattered the trust I'd built my life around. I needed to know why. Then, one night, I saw him, the man from Clara's photos. He pulled up in a sleek black car, and Clara slipped out to meet him. They spoke in hushed tones, their heads close together, before driving off. I followed, my hands shaking on the wheel. They stopped at a diner on the edge of town, and I watched from the parking lot as they sat in a corner booth, their faces serious. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. Whatever Clara was hiding, this man was part of it, and I was going to find out what. The diner's neon sign buzzed faintly, casting a red glow over the parking lot as I sat in my car, my breath fogging the window. Clara and the man were still inside, their silhouettes blurred through the greasy glass. My leg ached, the cast a constant reminder of why I was here, spying like some amateur detective. But I couldn't turn back. The message on my phone, "Leave it alone," kept looping in my head, each word fueling my resolve. The Clara thought she could push me, literally and figuratively, and walk away. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I waited until they left, the man holding the door for Clara as they stepped into the night. She glanced around, her eyes scanning the lot, and for a moment, I thought she'd seen me. My heart lurched, but she turned away, climbing into his car. I followed at a distance, my headlights off to avoid notice. They drove to a rundown motel on the highway, the kind of place where no one asks questions. I parked across the street, watching as they disappeared into a room on the second floor. My mind raced with possibilities. Was this man her accomplice? Her lover? Someone she was hiding from the Whitmores? I spent the next few days piecing together what I could. The man's name was Ethan, I learned, after digging through Clara's old posts and cross-referencing them with public records. He was a mechanic with a rap sheet, petty theft, a bar fight. Nothing major, but enough to paint a picture. Clara had mentioned him once, years ago, in a throwaway comment about a friend who fixed her car. I hadn't thought much of it then, but now it felt like a thread I could pull. I started tailing Ethan, too, learning his routines, the garage where he worked, the bar he frequented, the way he always checked his phone like he was waiting for bad news. Emily finally called me a week later. Her voice was tight, like she was forcing the words out. "Anna, can we talk? In person?" I agreed. though my stomach twisted at the thought. We met at a coffee shop, one we used to haunt in high school. She looked exhausted, her eyes rimmed with shadows. "I'm sorry I've been distant," she said, stirring her latte without drinking it. "It's just, Clara's been going through a lot. I don't think she meant to hurt you." "Meant to?" I snapped, louder than I intended. Heads turned at nearby tables. "Emily." She pushed me. I felt her hands. "Don't tell me it was an accident." She flinched, her fingers tightening around her mug. "I know you're angry, but Clara's not. She's not herself. There's stuff you don't know about her, about our family." Her voice dropped, barely a whisper. "Please, Anna, just let it go." I leaned forward, my voice low but sharp. "What don't I know, Emily? What's so important that you're covering for her?" She shook her head, tears welling up. "I can't. It's not my story to tell." I left the coffee shop fuming, her words echoing in my head. Not her story to tell. Then whose was it? I started digging deeper, this time into the Whitmores themselves. Emily's parents, Richard and Margaret, were the picture of small-town perfection. But no family is that clean. I found old newspaper articles about a scandal from years ago. Richard's brother, Clara's father, had been caught embezzling from the family business. He'd left town in disgrace, leaving Clara behind. Was that why she was so angry? Did she blame me for something tied to that old wound? I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily was hiding something big. She'd always been loyal to her family, but this felt different, like she was protecting Clara out of fear, not love. I started calling old friends, anyone who might know something about the Whitmores. Most of them clammed up, but one, a former classmate named Sarah, hesitated before saying, "Clara's always been intense. There were rumors she got into some trouble in college. Something about a guy. But no one ever confirmed it." That night, I went back to the motel. Ethan was there alone, smoking on the balcony. I took a chance and approached him, my crutches clicking against the pavement. "You know Clara Whitmore?" I said. Not a question. He froze, his cigarette glowing in the dark. "Who's asking?" "Someone she tried to kill." I held his gaze, my heart pounding. He laughed, but it was nervous, not amused. "You've got the wrong idea, lady. Clara's not a killer." "Then why'd she push me down a flight of stairs?" I pressed, stepping closer. His eyes darted away, and for a moment, I thought he'd bolt. Instead, he stubbed out his cigarette and said, "You want answers? Ask her yourself. But be careful what you dig up." I drove home, my mind spinning. Ethan knew something, and so did Emily. The pieces were starting to fit, but the picture was still blurry. I started mapping out everything I knew: Clara's anger, Ethan's secrecy, Emily's guilt, the Whitmore's perfect facade. There was a truth buried here, and I was getting closer. But the closer I got, the more I felt like I was walking into a trap. The trap, if it was one, didn't scare me off. If anything, it made me more determined. Clara had taken something from men, not just my mobility, but my sense of safety, my trust in the people I loved. I wasn't going to let her win. I started spending hours at the library, combing through old records, anything that might tie Clara to Ethan or the Whitmore's past. I found a court document from 5 years ago. Clara had been charged with assault, but the case was dropped. The details were vague, but the victim was male, and the incident happened at her college. Sarah's rumor about trouble with a guy suddenly felt less like gossip and more like a lead. I couldn't confront Clara directly, not yet. She was too slippery, and I didn't trust myself to stay calm. Instead, I focused on Ethan. He was the weak link, the one who might crack under pressure. I went back to the bar he frequented, a dive with sticky floors and dim lights. He was there, nursing a beer in the corner. I slid into the booth across from him, ignoring the way his jaw tightened. "I know about Clara's assault charge," I said, keeping my voice steady. "And I know you're tied to her. Tell me what's going on, or I go to the police with everything I've got." Ethan's eyes narrowed, but he didn't deny it. "You're in over your head, Anna," he said, leaning forward. "Clara's not the monster you think she is. She's got reasons for what she does." "Reasons?" I scoffed. "She pushed me down a staircase. What reason justifies that?" He hesitated, his fingers drumming on the table. "She thought you knew something. Something about her past." My blood ran cold. "Knew what?" He shook his head, standing up. "Ask her." "I'm done talking." I didn't let him walk away. I grabbed his arm, my crutches clattering to the floor. "If you're protecting her, you're part of this. Tell me, or I swear I'll make sure everyone knows what you two are hiding." For a moment, he looked like he might hit me. Then his shoulders sagged, and he sat back down. "It's not what you think," he said, his voice low. "Clara's been through hell. Her dad's mess, her mom leaving. The stuff at Collegiate broke her. She's not trying to hurt you. She's trying to protect herself." "Protect herself from what?" I pressed, my heart racing. But Ethan clammed up, his eyes darting to the door. "Just talk to her. But don't say I didn't warn you." I left the bar shaken but more determined than ever. Clara thought I knew something worth pushing me down a staircase to keep hidden. But what? I barely knew her. The only connection was Emily. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized Emily was the key. She'd been dodging me, protecting Clara. But she couldn't avoid me forever. I showed up at the Whitmore house unannounced, my crutches sinking into the gravel driveway. Emily answered the door, her face paling when she saw me. "Anna, you shouldn't be here," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "I'm not leaving until you tell me what's going on," I said, pushing past her. The house felt different now, its warmth replaced by a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. Clara was in the living room, frozen mid-step when she saw me. For the first time, I saw something like fear in her eyes. "Why'd you do it, Clara?" I demanded, my voice echoing in the high-ceilinged room. "What did I ever do to you?" She didn't answer, just stared at me like I was a ghost. Emily stepped between us, her hands raised. "Anna, please. This isn't what you think." "Then explain it," I shouted, my voice breaking. Why is everyone lying to me? Clara's lips parted, but no words came out. Then, to my shock, she started to cry. Not the crocodile tears I'd expected, but real, gut-wrenching sobs. Emily rushed to her side, wrapping an arm around her. "It's okay," she murmured, but her eyes were on me, pleading. I stood there, my anger warring with confusion. Clara wasn't the villain I'd painted her assnet entirely. But that didn't erase what she'd done. "I deserve the truth," I said, my voice softer now. "If you want me to understand, tell me." Emily hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. But not here. Let's go somewhere private." We ended up at the park, sitting on a bench under a bare oak tree. Clara was silent, her eyes red, while Emily spoke. "It's about what happened in college," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Clara, she was assaulted. The guy got away with it. Changed her. Anna. She's been paranoid ever since, thinking everyone's out to get her. When she heard you talking about her dad's scandal at that party, she thought you were digging into her past, trying to hurt her." I stared at her, my mind reeling. I wasn't digging. I just mentioned it in passing. I didn't even know about her assault. "I know," Emily said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "But she didn't. She panicked. She thought you were a threat." I looked at Clara, who wouldn't meet my eyes. For the first time, I saw her not as a monster, but as someone broken, lashing out in fear. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it made me pause. The revenge I'd been chasing suddenly felt heavier, more complicated. The park was quiet, the only sound the rustle of dead leaves skittering across the path. Clara's sobs had subsided, but she still wouldn't look at me. Emily sat between us, her hands clasped tightly, as if she could hold this fragile moment together. I wanted to scream, to demand why Clara thought pushing me down a staircase was her only option. But the weight of her story held me back. Assault. A trauma that had twisted her into someone who saw enemies everywhere. I wasn't ready to forgive. Her leg throbbed with every heartbeat. A constant reminder of her choice, but I needed to understand. "Why didn't you just talk to me?" I asked, my voice softer than I intended. "If you thought I was a threat, why not ask?" Clara finally looked up, her eyes raw. "You don't get it," she said, her voice hoarse. "After what happened, I stopped trusting people. Everyone's a threat until they prove they're not. And when I heard you talking about my dad, I thought," she trailed off, swallowing hard, "I thought you were like them. The ones who used my family's mess to hurt me." I leaned back, the bench cold against my spine. "I wasn't. I'm not." "I know that now," she whispered. "But I didn't then." Emily reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "You knew about this," I said, my voice sharp. "You knew why she was paranoid, and you still let me think I was crazy for saying she pushed me." Emily flinched. "I was trying to protect her. She's family, Anna. And she's been through so much. I didn't want to believe she'd hurt you on purpose." "Protect her?" I laughed, bitter. "What about me? I was your best friend." The word was hung between us, heavy and final. Emily's face crumpled. But I didn't soften. She'd chosen Clara. Her loyalty to family overriding everything we'd shared. I stood, my crutches digging into the ground. I need time, I said, turning away. Don't call me. Back at my apartment, I couldn't sit still. Clara's story explained her fear, but it didn't erase the fact that she'd nearly killed me. Justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about accountability. Couldn't let this go. Not yet. But the revenge I'd been chasing clean. Righteous reckoning felt murky now. Clara wasn't a cartoon villain. She was broken. Like me. I went back to my journal, writing down everything Emily had told me. The assault. Clara's paranoia. The way it had warped her perception. I started researching her college years. Looking for the man who'd hurt her. If I could find him, maybe I could understand her better or at least prove she wasn't lying. It didn't take long to find a name. Daniel Harper. A senior at her college who'd been accused of assault by multiple women. Though none of the cases went to trial. The articles painted a grim picture. A charming athlete with powerful friends. Always slipping through the cracks. I tracked Daniel down on social media. He was living a few towns over. Working at a car dealership. His smile as slick as ever. Seeing his face made my stomach churn. The Clara's push was about fear. About protecting herself from someone like him. I could almost understand it. Almost. But I wasn't Daniel. I wasn't the enemy. I decided to confront him. Not for Clara. But for me. I needed to know if her story held up. If her fear was real or just an excuse. I drove to the dealership. My crutches tucked in the back seat. Daniel was there. All charm and polished shoes. Shaking hands with a customer. When he saw me, his smile faltered. Like he could sense I wasn't there to buy a car. You don't know me, I said, cutting off his sales pitch. But I know about Clara Whitmore. His face didn't change. But his eyes did wary. Calculating. Never heard of her, he said. Too quickly. Don't lie, I snapped. She accused you of assault. And now she's so paranoid she pushed me down a staircase because she thought I was digging into her past. He stepped back. His hands raised. Look, lady. I don't know what you're talking about. That was years ago. And nothing was proven. I'm not that guy anymore. Not that guy. I laughed. My voice shaking. You ruined her life. She's still living in that moment. And I'm the one paying for it. He glanced around. Nervous. Like he was afraid someone would overhear. I didn't do anything she didn't want, he said. His voice low. She's just unstable. Always was. I wanted to hit him. Instead, I turned and left. My hands shaking so badly I could barely grip my crutches. His words rang hollow. But they confirmed what I'd suspected. Clara's fear was rooted in something real. Daniel wasn't just a ghost from her past. He was a living reminder of everything she'd lost. That night, I dreamed of the staircase, of Clara's hands on my back. But this time, I didn't fall. I turned and faced her, saw the pain in her eyes, the same pain I felt now. When I woke, my resolve had shifted. Revenge wasn't enough. I wanted Clara to face what she'd done. But I also wanted her to heal. Maybe, In some twisted way, I wanted that for both of us. The dream clung to me like damp clothes, its images flickering every time I closed my eyes. Clara's face, twisted with fear and anger, wasn't just a memory, it was a challenge. I couldn't keep chasing her like this, letting my anger consume me. But I also couldn't let her walk away from what she'd done. There had to be a middle ground, a way to hold her accountable without destroying us both. I started thinking about redemption not just for Clara, but for me. I'd been so focused on justice that I hadn't noticed how heavy my hatred had become, how it was changing me into someone I didn't recognize. I called Emily. She answered on the first ring, her voice tentative. "Anna, are you okay?" "I want to talk to Clara," I said. No preamble. Not to fight. To understand. There was a long pause. "She's not ready," Emily said finally. "She's scared. Anna. Scared of you. Of what you might do." "Good," I said, surprising myself with the edge in my voice. "She should be. But I'm not here to ruin her. I just want the truth." Emily agreed to set up a meeting, but only if she could be there. I didn't argue. The Whitmore house was out of the question, too many ghosts, so we settled on a neutral spot. A quiet cafe downtown. When I arrived, Clara was already there, sitting in a corner booth with Emily beside her. She looked smaller than I remembered, her hands wrapped around a mug like it was an anchor. I sat across from them, my crutches propped against the table. "I met Daniel," I said, watching Clara's face. Her eyes widened, her knuckles whitening. "He's a liar," I continued. "But he told me enough. I know what happened to you. I know why you're scared. But that doesn't give you the right to hurt me." Clara's lips trembled, but she didn't speak. Emily started to, but I held up a hand. "Let her talk." "I didn't mean to hurt you," Clara said finally, her voice barely audible. "I just panicked. I heard you talking about my dad, and I thought you were trying to dig up everything me past. Daniel. All of it. I thought you were going to ruin me." "Ruin you?" I leaned forward, my voice steady. "Clara, I was your friend's friend. I barely knew you. Why would I want to hurt you?" She shook her head, tears spilling. "I don't know. I see him everywhere. In everyone. I thought you were part of it. Like you were working with him or something." The words hit me like a slap. She'd been so broken by her past that she saw enemies in shadows, in people who'd done nothing to her. I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was pity. "I'm not him," I said. "I'm not your enemy." "I know," she whispered. "I'm sorry, Anna. I'm so sorry." Sorry wasn't enough, but it was a start. I looked at Emily, who was watching us with tears in her eyes. "You should have told me," I said. "You let me think I was crazy." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I was wrong. I thought I was protecting her. But I hurt you instead." The cafe felt too small, the air too thick. I needed space to think. "I need time," I told them, standing. "This doesn't fix everything." Back home, I kept turning it over in my mind. Clara's apology was real, But it didn't erase the pain in my leg, the fear I'd felt tumbling down those stairs. I started writing again. Not just my journal, but a letter to Clara. I poured everything into it: anger, the hurt, the tiny flicker of hope that we could both move past this. I didn't know if I'd send it, but writing it felt like reclaiming something she'd taken from me. The next day, I got a call from the police. They'd looked into my case again, based on new information I'd given them about Clara's past. They wanted to question her, but they needed my statement to move forward. I hesitated. Part of me wanted her to face consequences, real, legal ones. But another part remembered her tears, the way her hands shook in the cafe. Was prison what she needed? Or was it just another way to break her? I met with the officer, the same tired man from before. If you press charges, it's assault, he said. But it's your word against hers. And with no witnesses, it's a tough case. I nodded, my mind racing. What if I don't press charges? What happens to her? He shrugged. Nothing, unless she does it again. But you could file a restraining order. I left the station without deciding. The idea of a restraining order felt like a half measure, a way to keep Clara at arm's length without addressing the real problem. I didn't want her in jail, but I didn't want her to think she'd gotten away with it either. There had to be another way. That night, I opened my laptop and started researching restorative justice programs. I'd heard about them in college meetings where victims and offenders talk, mediated by a professional, to find a path forward. It wasn't perfect, but it felt closer to what I wanted, a way for Clara to face what she'd done, for me to be heard, and maybe, just maybe, for both of us to heal. The idea of restorative justice stuck with me, like a seed planted in cracked soil. It wasn't about forgiving Clara, not yet. Maybe not ever, but about finding a way to move forward without letting her actions define me. I spent days researching, reading stories of people who'd sat across from those who'd hurt them, who'd found some kind of peace in the process. It wasn't guaranteed, but it was a chance. I called Emily and told her my idea. She was quiet for a long time before saying, "I'll talk to Clara. She might not agree, but I'll try." A week later, we were in a community center, sitting in a circle with a mediator named Karen, a calm woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Clara looked like she hadn't slept in days, her hands fidgeting in her lap. Emily was there, too, her presence a quiet support for both of us. I'd asked for her to come, not because I'd forgiven her, but because I needed her to see this through. The room smelled of coffee and old books, and the silence was heavy, like we were all holding our breath. Karen started, explaining the process. We'd each speak, uninterrupted, about what happened and how it affected us. I went first. I told Clara about the fear I felt falling, the pain that lingered in my body and my heart, the way her betrayal had shattered my trust in Emily, in the Whitmores, in the world I thought I knew. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. "You took something from me," I said, looking at her. "Not just my ability to walk without pain, but my sense of safety. I need you to understand that." Clara's eyes stayed on the floor, but I could see her trembling. When it was her turn, she spoke slowly, her voice thick with shame. "I was so scared," she said. "After what happened with Daniel, I stopped trusting anyone. I thought you were going to expose me, make it all come back. I know now you weren't. But in that moment, I lost control. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know I'm trying to be better. Emily spoke next. Her words a quiet confession. I failed you, Anna, she said. I thought protecting Clara meant lying to you, and I was wrong. I miss you. I miss us. The mediator guided us through questions, probing deeper into what we wanted from this. I wanted accountability, but I also wanted Clara to heal, to stop seeing the world as a battlefield. Clara wanted to make amends, though she didn't know how. Emily wanted her family back, both her cousin and her best friend. It wasn't a clean resolution, but it was a start. Karen suggested a plan. Clara would volunteer at a local women's shelter, a place where she could confront her past while helping others. I agreed, on the condition that she also start therapy. I didn't want her to just serve time. I wanted her to understand why she'd lashed out. For my part, I promised to keep the lines open, to let Emily back in slowly, if she could earn my trust again. Leaving the center, I felt lighter, though not unburdened. Clara's actions still hurt, and the road to forgiveness, if I ever got there, would be long. But I'd taken control of the narrative, refusing to let her push define me. I went home and tore up the letter I'd written her. I didn't need to send it anymore. I'd said what I needed to say. Over the next few weeks, I started physical therapy for my leg. Each session a small victory. Emily texted occasionally. Small gestures like a photo of our old high school or a memory from our childhood. I didn't always respond, but I didn't block her either. Clara sent me a letter, not an apology, but a thank you for giving her a chance to make things right. She was volunteering, she said, and starting therapy. It wasn't much, but it was something. I kept tabs on Daniel, too. Not out of revenge, but because I needed to know he wasn't hurting anyone else. I found a support group for survivors of assault and shared his name anonymously, hoping someone else might come forward. It wasn't my fight, but it felt like the right thing to do. One evening, I went back to the Whitmore house, not to confront anyone, but to reclaim the space that had once been my second home. Emily answered the door, her smile tentative but warm. Can I come in? I asked. She nodded, stepping aside. The house felt different now, not menacing, just ordinary. We sat in the kitchen, drinking tea, and for the first time in months, we talked without the weight of secrets between us. Clara wasn't there, but her presence lingered, a reminder of how fragile trust can be and how hard it is to rebuild. As I left, Emily hugged me, her arms tight. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know, I said, and this time, I hugged her back. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a step. And for now, that was enough. The weeks that followed felt like a slow thaw after a long winter. My leg was getting stronger, the pain less sharp with each physical therapy session. I could walk without crutches now, though I still moved carefully, as if the ground might betray me again. The restorative justice meeting had shifted something in not just my view of Clara, but of myself. I spent so long chasing revenge, letting it burn through me, that I'd forgotten what it felt like to want something else. Peace. Maybe. Or at least a version of it. Clara kept her word. I got updates from Emily about her volunteering at the women's shelter. How she was quiet but committed. Showing up every week to sort donations or listen to survivor stories. I didn't ask for details, but knowing she was trying meant something. Not enough to erase the past, but enough to make me think redemption wasn't just a buzzword. She was in therapy, too, though Emily didn't say much about it. Just that Clara was working through things. I hoped she was. Not for her sake, but because the world didn't need another person carrying that kind of pain. Lashing out at shadows. Emily and I started talking more. Small steps toward rebuilding what we'd lost. We met for coffee once. Then dinner. Always in neutral places where the Whitmore house couldn't cast its shadow. She was careful around me, like she was handling something fragile. And I let her be. Trust wasn't something you could force. It had to grow back slowly. Like scar tissue. Sometimes we'd laugh. And for a moment, felt like high school again, two girls dreaming of the future. But then I'd remember the fall. Her silence. And the moment would pass. I kept writing in my journal. Not just about Clara or Emily, but about myself. What did I want now? Justice had been my compass for so long. But it wasn't enough anymore. I started volunteering. To not at the shelter, but at a community center. Teaching art to kids. It was something I'd loved in college but abandoned when life got in the way. Watching them paint, their faces lit with focus, reminded me of who I'd been before the fall. Someone who created, not just destroyed. One day, I got a call from Karen, the mediator. Clara wants to meet again, she said. She has something to say. I wasn't sure I was ready, but I agreed. We met at the same community center, the same circle of chairs, though this time it was just the three of us. Clara looked different, less haunted, though her eyes still carried a weight. I've been thinking about what you said, she started, her voice steady. About how I took your safety. I didn't get it then. Not really. But I do now. She pulled out a notebook, its pages worn and creased. I wrote this for you, she said, handing it to me. It's not an excuse. It's just the truth. I didn't open it. Not there. I thanked her, my voice tight, and left. At home, I read it alone, the words spilling out in her messy handwriting. It was her story, not just the assault, but the years after, the shame, the fear, the way her family's scandal had made her feel like a target. She wrote about the night she pushed me, how she'd seen me laughing with Emily and felt like an outsider, how my mention of her dad's embezzlement had triggered something she couldn't control. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she wrote. I just want you to know I'm trying to be someone who doesn't hurt people anymore. I cried reading it. Not for her, but for all of us, me. Her. Emily. Caught in a web of pain none of us had woven alone. I didn't write back, but I kept the notebook. A reminder that even broken things can be mended, if you're willing to try. Meanwhile, I heard whispers about Daniel. Someone from the support group had come forward. Then another. His name was in the local news. A small article about new allegations. I didn't know if Clara's story was part of it, but I hoped it was. Not for revenge. but because he didn't deserve to walk free while she carried his scars. Emily invited me to her parents' annual charity gala, a tradition I'd attended every year until the fall. I almost said no, but something made me agree. The Whitmore house was as grand as ever, the chandelier sparkling above the staircase that had nearly ended me. Clara was there, helping with the event, her smile tentative but genuine. We didn't speak, but our eyes met, a silent acknowledgement of the work we were both doing. As I stood by the dessert table, Emily beside me, I felt a shift. The house didn't feel like a threat anymore. It was just a place, filled with people trying to navigate their own pain. I wasn't whole yet, but I was getting there. And for the first time, I believed Clara might, too. The gala was a blur of music and laughter, the kind of night that used to make me feel alive. Now, felt like a test of my strength, my ability to stand in a place that had broken me and not flinch. Emily stayed close, her presence a quiet anchor. Clara moved through the crowd, serving drinks and smiling at guests, her eyes occasionally finding mine. There was no hostility there, just a cautious hope, like she was waiting for me to decide what came next. I wasn't ready to give her that yet, but I didn't hate her anymore. That was progress. Back home, I kept thinking about her notebook, its pages heavy with truth. I started writing again. Not a letter this time, but a story mine. Clara's, Emily's, woven together. It wasn't for anyone else. It was for me, a way to make sense of the chaos. The words flowed, raw and honest, capturing the pain of the fall, the burn of betrayal, the slow climb toward something better. Writing it felt like healing, like I was stitching myself back together. A few weeks later, I got a call from the police. They'd arrested Daniel, thanks to multiple women coming forward. Clara wasn't named, but I knew she'd played a part. I felt a quiet satisfaction, not because he was suffering, but because justice was finally catching up. I texted Emily, asking if Clara was okay. She's relieved. Emily replied, and she wants to thank you. I didn't know what she meant until Clara showed up at my apartment, unannounced. I tensed, my hand on the door, but her face was open, unguarded. I didn't do it for you, I said before she could speak. I did it for me. I know, she said, her voice soft. But you still helped me. I testified. Anonymously. But I did it. I couldn't have without you. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to shut the door, to keep her at a distance. But another part saw the woman in front of me. Not the one who'd pushed me, but someone trying to rebuild. I'm glad you did, I said finally. But we're not friends, Clara. I don't know if we ever will be. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I just wanted you to know I'm trying. After she left, I sat on my couch, the weight of the moment settling over me. I didn't owe her forgiveness, but I could choose to let go of the anger. Not for her, but for me. I wanted to live without that fire in my chest, to be more than the girl who fell. Emily and I kept rebuilding, one coffee date at a time. We talked about the past, but also the future, her dreams of opening a bakery, my plans to keep teaching art. The Whitmore house became a place I could visit again, not as a second home, but as a memory I could choose to keep or leave behind. Clara was there sometimes. Always quiet. Always working on herself. We didn't speak much. But we didn't need to. The silence between us wasn't hostile anymore. It was just there. One day, I went back to the staircase. Not to confront it, but to see it for what it was, wood and nails. Not a symbol of my pain. I stood at the top, my hand on the banister, and looked down. The fall felt distant now, like a story that belonged to someone else. I didn't climb down not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need to. I'd already moved past it. I kept volunteering, painting with the kids, their laughter filling the cracks in me. I started a new project, a mural for the community center, a swirl of colors that told a story of breaking and healing. It wasn't perfect, but neither was I, and that was okay. The twist no one saw coming wasn't Clara's redemption or Daniel's arrest. It was me finding a way to rise above the fall, to build something new from the pieces. I wasn't the same Anna who'd laughed in this house years ago, but I was stronger, wiser, more myself than I'd ever been. And as I walked away from the staircase, the chandelier glowing softly above, I knew I'd never let anyone push me down again. Not Clara. Not fear. Not even myself.